It is, by the way, our first guest tonight is the author of the new book, The Law of Love. He and his wife, Barbara, have 4 children. By the way, he also has 3 Super Bowl rings. So between the 3 of us, there's an NFL Hall of Famer, a college football Hall of Famer, and a BYU Athletic Hall of Famer, and a BYU Law School grad. So that we combine to make quite a group. It's our pleasure to welcome our friend Steve Young to the Wise Guys. Steve, thanks for joining us.
You bet. I'm just fixing my camera here. Hold on.
we can hear you.
There he is. Hey. There he is. So,
hey, look.
Wait, where are you right now? You're not home. Are you at
the office?
Oh,
I'm at the office.
I was expecting you from being at the office at home, and you're in the office over in Palo Alto. So cool. I love the helmets on the back wall though. That's awesome. So
that's a COVID situation where my partner of 25 years, Rich Lawson, sits over here in the same office. We've been together since I retired, and he's like, I'm like Oscar. He's like Felix, right? Everything has to be perfect, and so. We have all these helmets for our golf tournaments, and that's how those are the prizes. And so in the corner is this big pile of stuff. He couldn't take it anymore, so during COVID, he hung it all up so that it's very clean and pure. So
I remember. I do have to say, Steve, I remember what model of Oldsmobile were you driving around when we were in school? That big old Oldsmobile, was it
Dynamic 88?
Yeah, Dynamic 88. It wasn't the most orderly car I've ever seen. I have to say that. So when you say you're Oscar, I believe that. So
yeah, no. Look, I'm not a slob. I'm in motion.
You are in motion. You've been in motion.
Life is in motion, and so I'm organized, but I'm not. I don't have to have everything put away.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Like
you know where it is.
Organized. It's set. I don't need to be freaked out about it.
Yeah, but so and I appreciate that about you. So how about Barb though? Like your beautiful wife Barb.
Luckily here's the deal. I am generally like, let's score. I don't know how we're going to do it. We're going to move the ball. We're going to score.
Right.
Barb is very much more about the detail. Like how are you lined up? What is exactly the timing of the route? That's the Bill Walsh, you know what I mean? And so we're a great marriage because I am not detail oriented. She is dramatically different, and I will tell you, our marriage for 24 years, that has been the issue. Like, I remember we were getting married and the wedding dinner, and she said, okay, so here's the menu. Everyone has to choose fish or beef. And so you have to go through your whole family and decide for the wedding dinner who's going to have what. And I'm like, and she kept asking me, and I'm like, I don't know, I'll get to it. She says, look, I need to know. And so I told her, honey, everyone in my family wants beef. 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 That's what we're doing. That inflamed her to no end. And she actually talked about like how she considered, like, do I really want to marry a guy that can't worry about those kind of details about what people are going to eat at the wedding dinner? Then what? And it really was a signal for me. And I told her, for 24 years, I have gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am on the move. I have gotten better. And it's taken some time, but I truly appreciate detail. I appreciate life of detail, and I have learned how to recognize that it's an important part of my life. So my marriage has brought me a sense of value to the details of life, and that's why my desk is just a couple of papers. So that's it.
Yeah. I have to say though, Steve, you made a comment that you and Barb, like, you're not exactly the same. You're like the yin and the yang and all that, and I would vouch for that as I've watched you guys over the years.
No, we're not opposites. We're not opposites.
No, you just she's really good at some things that you're not. You're really good at some things that she's not, and you guys have this beautiful thing where it just works so well together. Isn't that what it's all about? That's what marriage is all about, right?
It is beautiful, and you talked about the Law of Love book. That's the journey I've been on to share a way forward, an authentic way forward. For me, spiritually, that I was able to, have a gift from being around her. So that's that.
We got a few questions about that book with you before our live streams happen tonight. Corey Eschimer, our friend over in Japan, says, "Love you, Steve. You signed and sent a personalized photo to me when I had open heart surgery when I was 13. Still have it and hangs in my office in Tokyo today."
And by the way, Steve, Corey, who comes on and streams in every week. Corey, for the most part, runs the PGA Tour in Asia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he served a mission in Japan. He has some Japanese ancestry. He was over there. He married a girl from there. And when PGA Tour, he was working for like a banking company. When the PGA Tour found out that he was over there and that he spoke English and he played the game of golf and all this, I mean, he was a shoe-in, and he's been over there ever since. And he runs that thing over there. And I did not know this, but he says that back when he was 13 and had open heart surgery, you sent him a signed photo, and he's got that in his office at the PGA offices in Japan. That is really cool. All these years later, we find out about that story.
I got to be honest with you. There's times where I've run into people that have had that kind of dramatic feeling for something that I've done for them, and what it makes me think, because it's so easy for me to do something small that has a big effect, and I'm drawn to wishing that I could have done that for 1,000 people, but I do what I see in front of me. But how much you wish you could make people's lives better if you could just know, so many times you just don't know. And I love hearing about that, because especially Barb loves to hear it, because when we first got married, I'd be in a group of people and a lot of people would want an autograph or something. And I'd kind of move through them and kind of be as kind as I can, but we got to go, and she'd say, why don't you stop and sign everything? And I'm like, well, because can't do that. We got to go. And she goes, well, I think you're making a mistake. I think you should take the time. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And in fact, whenever she said, especially if someone's wearing your jersey, Steve, if someone's wearing your jersey, that's a sacred act, man. We got to sign every jersey. And so I go, okay, honey, I promise you, if I ever see someone with my jersey on, I will sign it. I don't care if and so we're driving down the highway coming back. I think it was a 49er game. We're driving down the highway and we're passing a car, and a guy is like, they see me and they're saying, he's got my jersey on. And Barb looks at me like,
you said, you promised.
He's in a car on a highway. We can't do it. So she's like, you promised me. So I go, can you pull over? We pull over, we sign it.
Oh my goodness.
Side of the highway. And he loved it, and it was amazing, and for him. But I just like, Barb, I don't think we should do that on the highway.
I love the line in your book that reads, "The law of love is undefeated." Expound on that and your motivation to write that book.
That's great. So I think it's important to define the law of love, which is loving as God loves, which, if you think about the scripture, my work and my glory is to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man. There's what God gets glory through our glory. So in other words, his love for us is outward. In other words, I don't receive, there's no deal that I'm making. I only receive through my love for you is to grow and receive glory. And that's the idea. That's the whole point of life. And so if we're going to do that, then we need to receive, how we receive glory is through others and seeing others and watching for them and having a language of healing and peace and prosperity and abundance. And what do my relationships look like? And in doing that, that's how to me, that's the irony of the quote from the scriptures, lose yourself and you'll find yourself, is that the irony is in loving as God loves, which is the law of love, and seeking other people's healing. That's how you receive, ironically, the full measure of heaven. And so doing that, law of love is undefeated, because all the other laws of God are kind of this world. They're more self-interested, things that I do to receive things, kind of like transactional. I'm going to be obedient because then I'm going to receive something. Yeah. And anything that's self-interested over time, no matter how righteous, will rot in self-interest. And the only things that are perpetual, the only thing that last forever, is outwardly seeking others' healing. And so if you think about a law that has to be, if there's a law in heaven, it has to be a perpetual law. It can't rot. It can't, and so that's the idea that it's undefeated forever. If you're ever down, it's like, that's why I say we're always called wounded healers. The wounded healers of the world, that's all of us. That's our capacity, because we're all wounded. We all have the capacity to heal others. And as we seek Moroni, I always say, if I ever get a tattoo, I'm going to have it be say Moroni 7.
Yeah.
That's that's where it all starts and stops and ends right there, is the idea that we can have transfigured eyesight to see other humans as God sees other humans. And in that sacred way, we have in the restored gospel an ability to understand why, because of preexistence, because we're all divine, because heavenly parents that have a design for us to grow. All of that gives us a great superstructure to understand what we're trying to do. And then all we're supposed to do is help the Savior in the atonement extend into every relationship wherever we are. And I always tell people, what relationships? Well, every relationship. I was just at the left. I was just late here trying to turn left at the green light, the arrow behind a guy, and the arrow turned green and he didn't go. And I'm going to be late for you guys. And now we're in a relationship. Like we're in a relationship. And so what's the most healing, peaceful, an abundant way to deal with that relationship that I'm in now? And I decided that despite my desire to honk, I decided to just take a breath. Just breathe through it. If he misses the whole light, maybe I'll figure out how to say something to him, but I don't know if he'll miss the whole light. So just let it breathe. And then he saw it, left, and went on. And then he and I are now in a more abundant relationship because he's not, because you get honked on the nose.
Amen to that. I got to read the book in a unique way, Steve. So you gave the book to Dallas, my son-in-law, who you're really close to my daughter, Libby, and to my son-in-law, Dallas, who you guys have been so gracious to. So he had notes all in the margins, and then he read the book, and then he left the book at our house with the notes. So I got to read through it with Dallas's notes. So I got all of your wisdom, and then I got Dallas's interpretation of that wisdom in the margins, which was a really cool way for me to read that book, and I loved it. In the book, I mean, you gathered perspectives from a wide range of individuals. And what surprised you the most as you did the research for that book?
Well, the research of that book was living my own life out and trying to find with all the complexities of life and all the spiritual complexities, and how even in scripture it's complex. Like there's just, and how do I can't bind it all together. It falls apart. And so I think the biggest surprise to me was how much I, in trying to find what lasts forever. I have a durable spirit inside of myself that's supposed to have lasted forever. And it's not of this place. What else is not of this place that's going to last forever? What can I trust? And in so doing, they always say there's 4 power words. Oh, no. People I say, well, I want to be a great disciple. What do I do? What do I do? And then, of course, there's going to be a long list of things to do. And I found that in the doing, it was more transactional, and it didn't feel like it was forever. Didn't feel perpetual. And then I realized that there's a few times that in scripture they talk about ways to sacredly hold healing power. And there's 4 states of being. And so instead of doing stuff, and that was the most, you asked me what was the most surprising thing in my diligence of it, was finding out that I wasn't supposed to be doing anything, I was supposed to be being things. And the 4 things I'm supposed to be, the language of and the actions of, are long-suffering, gentle persuasion, meekness, and love unfeigned. And in being those things, like, okay, what is the language of long-suffering? What would if I'm in a relationship, whatever it is, marriage or on the street at the green light, what is the language of long-suffering? What is the action of gentle persuasion? What is love? What is the most loving thing? And so in that doing, sorry, I didn't mean doing, in the being of those things, I found heaven unlocked for me. And so that was the greatest irony that made it very clear to me that I need to share this with my family. That's why I wrote it. And then, then it got, then it is where it is today.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I love that thought, because in a nutshell, it's about stop worrying about doing and focus more on being, and that can change your whole perspective on everything, right?
Because we're not looking to go rest in a perpetual place of a place. We're in a perpetual state of being, and that being needs to start by the selfless act of seeing others as Moroni begged us to do. And speaking of Dallas and Libby, your daughter, I have to say this. Dallas, I love Dallas, but Libby is one of the greatest humans I've ever met. And so I don't know, Blaine, how that happened.
You know Brenda. You know Brenda. You know how it happened.
It seems greatly ironic, but she's one of the greatest humans I've ever known. So I'm so grateful for you to share
that's
her
nice.
with me.
It's been no, you guys have been, you and Barb have been so good to Libby, and you've been family to Libby, you're family to us, and so if people that don't know that Barb and Steve just put their arms around Dallas and Libby when they were over at Stanford and just took care of them, took them in as family, and we'll never forget that.
They took care of us. Let's be honest, and they continue to take care of us in really unique ways because of the trust that we've developed with each other. And those are hard relationships to come by in the world, and I'm very grateful for it.
The book is called The Law of Love. It's available through Deseret Book. Steve Young's on the Wise Guys tonight, live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. By the way, we had dinner with Sherry Dew the other night.
Yeah,
she
Thursday night. She said to give you a hug,
Really?
so we're going to give you a virtual hug. We love
I
Sherry.
didn't know you guys were big time.
Oh, yeah, come on.
Oh, all right. I
She
didn't realize Wise Guys was out with the elite.
Listen, we're making headway with all your friends.
Sherry was on the show a few weeks ago, and we went to dinner with her, and it was the funnest thing, Steve, because you remember Robert Parker, RP, our running back from the old days. He's the maitre d' at Ruth's Chris. And he came in and all dressed up. He looks fantastic. He's doing fantastic. And Sherry gave him a big hug and met him, and he got done with his shift. And Sherry and I were talking about when you play on a team, because Sherry, most people don't know, was a two-time first team all-state basketball player, right?
Yeah.
Great
athlete.
basketball player, right?
Great athlete.
So we were talking about teams and brotherhood and all of that. So Robert says, "Hey guys, I gotta go. My shift is done. Love you guys," and he walks outside. And then three of our other teammates, Courtney Rogers leading the pack, and a couple of other guys, they're in town from Southern California on business, and they've rented Vespas, and they're just driving down the street, and they see Robert Parker. So they pull over and say, RP. And RP says, "Hey, guess what? Blaine's in Ruth's Chris right here." And they go, "Can we see him?" They're in bike helmets, T-shirts, and raggedy shorts. And RP's like, "Of course you can." So RP comes back into Ruth's Chris, parades these guys through the whole thing, comes back, and we introduce them to Sherry, and we have a nice visit right there. And then Sherry says, "That's what you're talking about. That's what Band of Brothers is." I go, "That is what Band of Brothers is right there. You just come off the street when you find out your brother's in the building, and you just come see him." It was really, really fun. So.
And I appreciate Tom Homo really focusing on, and I know you mean this when you say that, Band of Brothers, the Band of Sisters as well. Like, there is a wholeness to our athletic department that Tom has brought that has elevated, and anyone, like, he's so focused on making sure that there's no one that's marginalized in the athletic department. And I love that. And so the Band of Brothers really is the Band of Sisters too, because it feels like, even when, my little Summer is going to be a senior in high school this year, and she's qualified out of nowhere. Last month of May, she tried high jumping, then qualified for the state finals. And so suddenly she's jumped high enough to be recruited. And so we went up to Oregon she was invited to the Nike tournament. I don't know the
Invitational. The Invitational.
And met with BYU coaches. And the coaches at BYU, especially track, they're just unique wonderful humans. And so Tom has just created this thing that I want to extend out into the world, and has so much, and that's that Band of Brothers that we've been talking about forever. There is a connection that is deep that goes through the athletic department, and I feel that in amazing ways.
Steve, Brigham Young, the second president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, died on this day in 1877.
I know that.
What has it meant to you to represent that last name as the great-great-great-grandson?
Well, I mean, I don't think about that a lot. I think that at the time there was all kinds of challenges in getting talk about a band of people just that are trying to survive, and then expanding and flourish. And really so much of the West was settled by those pioneer people and the stories. And I don't know if you've ever been cold in your life outside, and Have you ever been too hot outside and not protected? And like, how do people make it? And all those years and all that suffering and all those people that have made, the West of America what it is, and our religion what it is. I'm grateful for the sacrifice for people. And he was the one who did it. I mean, I'll be the first team to tell you that he's not perfect. He is not a perfect person. And in history, we recognize that there was foibles made, but we can appreciate all of the things that happened that were amazing in developing out of the rock, clawing it out of the rock. And I'm very grateful. And I take that toughness and diligence and sense of sacrifice, certainly kind of feel like a real sense of pride about that.
Steve Young's with us on Wise Guys. Super Bowl MVP in 1994, in the NFL Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame, the BYU Hall of Fame. I mean, those are titles we use for Steve all the time. I think Steve would just be as proud to say great dad, great husband, great friend, because those are all just as important to Steve. We have to talk a little bit of football. We want to talk all these things because these things are so important and so fun to talk about, and people don't get to hear it. But BYU's starting a brand new quarterback, and you're a kingpin in that tradition. The greatest success of any quarterback post BYU in BYU history. So you're part of that great tradition. So now all of a sudden, Keaton Slovis is going to take the field, and I know that you got his number this afternoon from Dave, and we hope you're going to reach out to him. That's fantastic. He seems like a phenomenal human, as Dave and I have had a chance to interact with him. What would you tell him as he takes the field for the first time in a Cougar uniform?
Well, I don't want to burden somebody. The job is already really hard. And so I would want him to take in a sense of history and the success of other quarterbacks before him as and in the spirit of, I don't want it to be pressure. I don't want it to be expectations. I want it to be an invitation to go be great. And I think that anyone who plays quarterback needs lots of help. And so hopefully he gets that help. And I love the last 3 or 4 years, the offense and A-Rod and what he's done and how he thinks about offense is how I feel Kyle Shanahan feels about offense and how Randy Reed feels about offense. There's an innovative mind. He's not unafraid, and he's obviously someone who can coach the position. And there are so few places, Blaine, that in the pros and in college that really understand the position of quarterback, give the quarterback the chance to and the help that he needs, and then also recognizing that every week you need innovative play calling, and you need all of that kind of coming together. So I hope for Keaton that he has that. I think we have the coach, we have the offensive philosophy. Well, I think we'll have the offensive line. We've got weapons, and so for him, go play the position. And everyone plays it a little bit differently, but in the end, can I get the ball out of my hand efficiently and effectively, and I'm not making stupid mistakes, and I'm not causing it too much grief, and then I can grow from there. I can learn as I get experience. And it's the guys that you can sense that every play matters, every mistake I don't want to see ever again. Everything I'm doing, I'm trying to get a little bit better every time I throw the ball. And so that's the spirit of it. And nobody, Jim McMahon, Mark Wilson, myself, nobody was great. We all grew. We all matured, but we did it quickly. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, so Keaton, it's like, get in, play some ball, making some mistakes. We don't want to see him again, and get good fast. That's just how we do it.
Get good fast.
That's great. Hey, you just need to get good fast. That's great advice.
But that's. I think that's the position today in the world. Like quarterback in the NFL today, quarterback in college is get trained, get some good help, get someone to call some great plays, be innovative, and now get good fast.
Yep.
And guys that have the mentality to do that can do it. And I mean Zach got good fast.
Yeah,
Zach got good really fast. Yeah. Jalen got good really fast.
I'm going to take you back. I want to take you back, Steve. I was there with you. We were back together in Georgia, in 1982, September 82. We're playing Herschel and these guys.
Good.
No,
that was not good.
Well, but here's the thing. So your first start, it's against a P5 school. It's your first start against a P5. We're playing Herschel in number 6 Georgia in that stadium where they were calling us dog meat, all in unison, all 88,000 of them, right? Quite the environment. And we lost. We lost 17-14. Then the following week, BYU got beat at home against Air Force in the opening expanded LaVell Edwards Stadium. But then something changed. And you and all of us, something changed because we won 18 of the next 21 games and really went on a run for a couple of years that was unprecedented in college football. What was it that changed? What changed about you, and what did you learn from those first couple of games, and what changed about the team?
I had to. You talk about getting good fast. Like I had to learn. I mean, Jim McMahon had 76 NCAA records. I mean, I remember those. I mean,
oh my goodness, we'd watch film, right? So you'd be like, my goodness, he's a magician.
Oh my gosh, and he was, and technically, I mean, Jim was a nutty guy, but he technically, and I've told Jim to his dad and everybody, I learned to play the position the way I play it by watching Jim McMahon. He was technically a perfect drop, set, throw quarterback. And he could read defenses, and I learned that from him. And so I was ready to do it, but I was somebody that I needed to get my feet under me and get a sense of, like, I remember I left the Georgia game, and I was like, I threw 6 interceptions. When was the last time you had a BYU quarterback throw 6 interceptions?
Ty threw like that many in his opener, didn't he? Something.
Maybe half that in the second half. But
Yeah.
6 is pretty standalone.
Oh my gosh! And so and I remember at halftime I'd thrown 4, I want to say, and Lavell's like, he came up to me and kind of tried to calm me down. He's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And is everything like, you got to settle down. And I turned to him and I was like, "I'm great." Because I felt like, no, I'm figuring it out. Like it won't stay like this. It'll be fine. And I remember, like, I turned back to Lavelle. I was like, we're gonna be fine. He tells the stories like, when I came back at him like that, he wanted to say, "Well, you're not fine. You're terrible. I'm trying to pump you up, and you're not feeling the gravity of the situation right here. You've thrown 4 interceptions in the first half in Georgia. We got a problem." And I was like, "Don't you see the problem?" And I saw only solutions. So and maybe that was it. I knew that I had a sense that I could really do something special. I felt like if I just keep doing it. And so I had to get it together fast because we'd lost. You can't replace Jim McMahon and lose. You can't throw an interception. You can't throw a bad pass. I mean, everyone saw him and remembered him as perfection. And so I loved the idea that I had to be perfect. I knew I couldn't be, but that's just the expectation. Just took me to the level where it never felt like, oh, that's enough. It was like always more. And for me, that was what I needed. I needed to always feel like you're doing great, but there's more. There's more. And I love that.
You got good fast. You did. You got good
fast. And Steve, you may have heard me say, I've said,
get good fast or you're out.
Yeah, I've said this over and over again.
Let me just say this: you got to get good fast, or it's Pleasant Grove, American Fork, Draper. Like, you're out of town. Like, get out of here. Get going.
I've said to people many times, publicly, I'm just like, Steve's one of the greatest players in the history of the game, and I said I had a front row seat to watch him go from here to here, and I don't know if you can see me on the screen, like, but I said it was just remarkable because it's like he got better with every snap, he got better with every quarter, with every game, and it never stopped, and it felt like it never stopped even in the National Football League. When you were an MVP, it just felt like you were still grinding and trying to get better every play and every quarter and every game. I never saw you stop working at your craft and getting better. It was just remarkable to me that you were never satisfied, and so you just kept getting better until you were tied as one of the greatest of all time. How do you teach a kid to have that mentality? Because that's the magic sauce right there, Steve, and you had it.
Well, have them replace Jim McMahon.
That helps.
And then have them replace Joe Montana. And then, then like get on your horse and start riding. Like I loved, it was brutally hard, but I knew there wasn't, I guess for me, I had the ability to run. And once I learned to throw the football, thanks to Jim, I could throw it anywhere. I felt like I had this new talent when I went to college, and I didn't know how to throw the football properly when I got to BYU, but I watched Jim, and it's like, oh, and once I felt that, I know all of a sudden it was as if I had a talent I never knew about. I could throw the ball anywhere, at any time, at any position. It's like all of a sudden, like, and so to me, it was all about just getting more opportunity to throw it. And then because I could run around, I could extend it and make people pay, like I could, you want to drop 8 and like, I'll just run for 15. Like and so the next play, I'll throw it right by you. And so I loved being able to put that kind of pressure on defenses. And then because I had help and because I had an innovative offense and a great coach, off we went. And I had that. I never stopped that. I went to the USFL and I had Sid Gilman was my coach, the great Sid Gilman, one of the greatest fathers of the forward pass.
Yes.
He was like 80 years old. He was like at the end of his career. Gave me some of the greatest wisdom ever about how to throw the football and where to go and how to, and he encouraged me. He loved the fact that I could run around. He didn't worry about that I was lefty. And then I had Mike Holmgren again and Bill Walsh and Mike Shanahan and Steve. I mean, I had all these phenomenal coaches that just propelled me forward. And because I could threaten, the game in ways that no one else could. It was just so much fun to be able to read defenses and throw it and dissect them. And then the 1 or 2 times that they would get to us, I could make them pay again. And so to me, Blaine, I was just trying to get the full measure of myself. Like I kept going because there was just more to do. There was more to get. There was more to become. And I was given the chance in the NFL. So many guys, go through so many names that I know that got to these terrible places for quarterbacks and spent their whole career just in terrible situations. I found my way to San Francisco, and I found my way to a place where they were 3 generations ahead of everybody else offensively. And I had to sit around a little bit, which was a bummer. But, I knew that once I got there that, it was an amazing opportunity. So I think more than anything, you're right. I did constantly get better because I had the ability and I was given the platform to do it. And then I had the ability to just continue to threaten defenses. The game today is my game. All the great players today are guys that play just like I did. And the game has changed in such a dramatic way because of how they've limited defenses. But the dual threat quarterback is going to be the future of the sport forever because of the rules. They're not going to try to make it more dangerous. And so because of that, and so to me, I love that football that I played is now kind of ruling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because how many times I had, not in San Francisco and not when I was at the LA Express or not when I was at BYU, but a lot of places people would say, we don't like scramblers. We don't like it. And I was like, how about a scrambler who's best, has the best passer rating in the NFL who can run? How about that?
They just didn't get it.
You don't like scramblers, but how about the most efficient passer in the game who can run? How about that one for you? And I always loved them trying to tell me, well, you can't have a running quarterback. Like, how about a quarterback that can completes 80% of the passes and can run? And so I was like, there's an and to this, not an or. And that's what I love with the game today is that Patrick Mahomes is an and guy.
Yes.
Right? It's like I can be the most efficient thrower of the football in the game and I can still beat you with my legs. I love that.
Yes.
Steve Young is on the Wise Guys tonight. Vi Sikahema is going to join us in just a second. It's his birthday. He's got a couple of things he'd like to tell you. But before we get to Vi, and then we'll let you get on with your night. Last August, when Marie Osmond was here as a guest with Robbie Bosco, we asked you to submit some questions. You know what's coming. We asked you to submit questions for Marie to ask Robbie, and she did a great job. When she wasn't laughing, she was able to deliver that. Well, tonight, Robbie has sent us a few questions for us to ask you.
He was going to come up, Steve, but Mr. Bishop Robbie Bosco got tied up in interviews.
And you know what? I say this. If you're going to have Robbie ask me a question He has to be in person. Look me in the eye with these questions.
Here's number one.
I have a feeling I'm going to want him to have looked me in the eye.
I agree with it. I agree. Like, I'm going to let Dave do him because I'm not even condoning this.
Number
so Dave
one,
can do it.
From Robbie. After your concussion in the 1983 game against Utah State, your backup, Robbie Bosco, came in and led the team to a score and seemed to have everything under control. Why did you feel it necessary to come back in on the very next series?
Because Robbie didn't have it under control. He only acted like it was. He only went 5 for 5 and a touchdown, but I sensed that there was some confusion in the air, and I needed to get back on the field before Robbie took my job.
Okay.
Hey, you know what? I can feel for Robbie because we're playing Ohio State in '82 in the bowl game, and they're roughing us up a little bit, and Steve gets like the hardest hit I've ever seen a quarterback ever. And
Oh,
you
yeah,
remember
that
that
was
hit?
wicked.
He broke my helmet.
Yeah, was that Marcus Merrick and Trevor? I can't.
Broke my helmet.
Yeah.
I turned back, and a guy hit me. I agree with it. It's the hardest I've ever been hit in my life.
I never saw anything like it. I thought Steve might be out forever,
We were
let alone
sitting-
for the rest of the game.
We were sitting in the stands. We
So-
thought you were dead.
So Mike looks at me, Holmgren looks at me and says, "Go, you're in. Let's go. Well, don't worry, I'll call stuff for you." And I'm looking, I'm thinking, we're getting killed out here. Like, so I go in, and a couple plays later, Steve comes running back in, and I come out, and Holmgren says to me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Steve's in." He goes, "Steve who?" I said, "Steve Young." He goes, "Steve Young is not back in. Did you see the hit?" I'm going to know he's back in. He just sent me out. He's back in. Mike's like, "Well, this will be interesting." No, Steve came back in. And Steve always feels the need to come
All
back
right,
in.
here's question number 2. Question number 2 from Robbie Bosco. Steve, why did you quit taking me golfing after signing such a huge contract the summer we were hanging out? That's inside baseball because I don't know what he's talking about, but apparently it's still bugging him.
Well, there was not like he's trying to create division. You know, I'm about love, and I'm not going to go this way. I'm not going to go into this divisive conversation with Robbie. That he was, the little brother that just, was like wouldn't let go of my pant leg. Like, I'm not going to give that image of this little kid that just wouldn't let me go. Because all of us big boys are. No, he's I think more than anything golfing with Robbie, and I will say this, Robbie's a really good golfer, and I've had very much jealousy because he makes golf look really easy, and golf has always been really hard for me. So that's probably why I left him behind, because he was making me look bad.
Yeah, Robbie's a phenomenal player.
Thank you for that, Robbie's questions. And hey, Steve, we're going to bring in Vi Sikahema on his birthday. Elder Sikahema right there. Steve, do you have any advice for Elder Sikahema as he moves forward?
It's your P day, bro. You don't have to wear.
Why
the
has he
white
got a
shirt.
white shirt on?
Bro, you're okay. Like, it's okay.
Steve, these are my pajamas. I sleep in a white shirt. I take the tie off when I go to sleep, but I keep the white shirt.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, man, look at him right there. Hey, I can't tell you, this guy had more life, more stories, more. You talk about a healer. He was a guy that could be tension, and he could break it with a great story, a great joke. Nothing ever brought him down. And he was one of the guys our freshman year. We had a lot of guys our freshman year. And he was one of the guys.
Steve,
he was one of the guys that played right away. There's a lot. This is a tough team to break into. There was a lot of great players, and Vice showed up as a freshman. And they put him right out there. Took me 2 years to get out there.
It was like Steve. It was like gladiator school our freshman year.
Yeah.
It was like gladiator school. It was like the toughest, baddest dudes were going to survive. And frankly, Steve, we weren't sure what to make of Steve because he was it was clear he was an intellect. So that made him different from the rest of us knuckleheads who were there. But Steve had just enormous athletic talent. And that was clear. I remember one night we were walking from the Cannon Center after a meal. We were walking up to the library. I don't know why I was going to the library. You were at the library all the time.
There was a girl up there you were going to meet.
I guarantee it. I guarantee that too.
But I remember Steve just lamenting the fact that he had made a serious mistake. And I remember the school that you were talking about. Steve had wanted to go to. He felt like he should have gone to North Carolina. Was that one of the schools, Steve, that recruited you hard?
Great memory. That tells you that you know the story, because I was a freshman. I show up and this is a great, you know, the story. I'm 8th string on the depth chart. 8th string on the depth chart. You know what that means? I'm running the plays of Wyoming and Utah, and Kyle Whittingham's killing me, trying to, you know, the defense doesn't. They're too stupid to know that I'm just a BYU quarterback acting like the Utah quarterback, and so I was getting killed. And I remember talking to Vi. I was down as I've ever been, and I said, Vi, I could have been starting at North Carolina right now, and they don't even know my name here. I don't even know what I'm doing here. And I was like, that's when I called my dad. I said, Dad, I'm coming home. And my dad said, I live with quitters, bro. So that was it. That was Vi. I can't believe that was you that I was complaining to coming out of the Kansas.
Did Vi give you any advice? What did Vi tell you on that big night?
Vi's like, I don't know your name either, bro.
Hey, I wanted to know if I could go with them. Let's go. Hey, if they had the transfer portal back then, Steve and I would have left that first semester. We just felt so out of place. I had committed to go to Arizona State because I was a running back. I wanted to go to Arizona State, but Frank Cush got fired the month before the signing date, and I called Lavelle and I said, "Is there still a scholarship left?" And he said, "We'll make some changes, but you need to sign and come. We need to know this week. If you're not coming, then the scholarship's going somewhere else." And I ended up going to BYU under those terms. But we had, honestly, that freshman class, think about this, 3 number 1 draft picks, Steve Young, Gordon Hudson, and Todd Shell. That's Alabama-like in 2022. We had 3 number 1 draft picks come out of our class. And Lee Johnson was in our class. He played, 19, 20 years in the NFL?
He punted more times than most anyone has ever played. Jim Herman was a pro for a while. You played pro for forever.
Bruce Hansen played
for a while. Wayman Adams played for years.
Adam, I mean, we had some horses on that, but we didn't really know it until, probably – I think maybe we had some sense our freshman year that we were a pretty good class, but we didn't have anything to compare it to, but we just knew that it was. Hey, by the way, Steve always loves to tell the story of that he was 8th on the depth chart. Now I'm going to put Steve on the.
I'm trying to think of the 8 quarterbacks because I was there the next year. I don't remember we had
go.
8. Jim Kimball, Eric Krasmarzik.
No. Royce Bybee.
Okay, Royce.
Jim Kimball, Eric Krasmarzik. Mark Halgo.
Oh yeah, I forgot Mark.
How many is that? 5, 6?
Well, you didn't say Jim because obviously Jim was there.
We got.
There was a guy from California named Mike. He had a mustache.
Mike.
Was it Wilson?
Yeah, not Will. It was Mike.
You know what I'm talking about.
The mustache. He had the mustache.
Yeah, he had the mustache.
And then Jim and Mark and Eric and
we're missing somebody, but that's 7 right there.
Royce.
Everybody was on scholarship.
Yeah, I was 8th string. There was and then I remember. Do you remember Eddie Reed? You were in varsity right away, Vi. I mean, Vi went right up. Vi was like, oh, he's a superstar. The rest of us played JV. We had to go down to UNLV on the AstroTurf on 130 degrees. The shoes, my Nikes,
I believe
melted. They melted.
It.
And we ran the wishbone because we'd been playing the wishbone ready for the Wyoming game. And Andy Reid's like, Steve, you run the wishbone so well. We're going to go down. And so now I'm trying to play for BYU, and I'm running the freaking Wyoming wishbone for BYU. And we go down to the game, and Andy Reid, it's my turn to start because Mark Halgo and Jim Kimmel and I we traded starts in the JVs. And Mark Halgo's dad came down to the game, traveled from Minnesota. And so Andy Reid walks into the locker room before the game and goes, hey, Steve, Mark Halgo's dad has flown in from Minnesota. So do you mind if he starts today? Because his dad's here. I'm like, oh, yeah. Mark Halgo's dad can come next week to Air Force, bro. This is my shot. Andy Reid's trying to take my shot away.
Oh my goodness!
I got a question for both of you. Who's most surprised, Steve, that Vi is a general authority of the church, or Vi that Steve's writing books about love?
Both pretty surprising. I think you know what? In our group of guys, there was a vicious faith. You know, what I mean, it was like we were guys that had been from a long ways away. Like I came from a long ways away. Jim Herman came from places away. I came from places away. There's a lot of like I say vicious faith when I'm saying it's been tested. Like it wasn't we didn't have to go show it all. We've been through it a little bit. And so I think there was a sense that no matter what, I tell you what what I never wondered is the both of us be here today kind of with, pretty strong faith still. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
I agree with that.
Hey,
I mean, seriously, if you just go back, that 1980 group, if you would have said, hey, two guys out of that class, one's going to be a Hall of Fame in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the other one's going to be a general authority, nobody would have picked the two of us. Probably.
Who would they have picked?
Like pick the guys. That's what I want to know. Who
Well, I don't
would
know.
have been
That'd be a hard one because maybe I would have picked this Divine. Maybe we just don't realize that.
You know what? You know why it would have been hard to pick? It's because guys like Wayman Hamilton,
right,
who was about as crazy. He didn't want to come to BYU. He was recruited by USC, Oklahoma, all the big schools, and
right. That's right.
He hated BYU. He hated Provo, but he came because his mother joined the church when we were seniors, and he came here because his mother committed him to come to BYU. And that guy he's been in like 3 bishoprics now. I think he's on his 4th bishopric, YSA bishopric in Provo. That may be an even bigger reach, Steve. If you knew Wayman the way we knew Wayman, right? Blake, if
yes.
you knew Wayman the way we knew Wayman, that's an even bigger reach.
Yeah.
But it speaks of how far we've all come in the 40 years past. I mean, I'm just so proud of everybody.
Yeah, you guys have been great.
What a good time. I mean, you talk about the heyday. Lavelle Edwards in his heyday. Thus on a heyday. I mean, the team had just been expanded. Expectations that we would be undefeated and every year and have some good times. Wow, so many good times, so many fun times. And we really were all friends. We got along. We had a great time and a lot of good times. Man, with Lee Johnson and Scott Robinson and these guys.
Scotty. So I have a question for you guys because I get asked this all the time, right? And I was back there with you guys, didn't come till the next year in '81, but then I've been part of this for all of these years. And everybody always asks me, what's the greatest team of all time at BYU? And so, Vi and I were part of that '84 team. I always have to mention that. But my next one, I'm always like, the '83 team from a talent perspective, that one that Steve quarterbacked, and we went down and lost that opener at Baylor, but then came back and just didn't lose. And then it became like I never thought we were ever going to lose a football game again. After we got rolling in '83 and into '84 and into '85. The 96ers all say, well, what about us, right? And then Jim always says, Blaine, are you discounting? Jimmy Mack always like, Blaine, are you discounting 1980? Like, come on, that team was crazy good. So it always comes down to 80, 83, 84, and 96. What do you guys think? What's your vote on that?
Well, I watched 80 painfully because I had to sit from I remember Brian Hazelgren, because I didn't get to go on the travel squad as a freshman. I was up in his cabin up in the outside of Heber, and we were listening on KSL, just sad, like 2 sad sacks, listening to, and just, they beat UTEP 75-0, and like they were just killing people. And so it's like, I'm not going to be part of the bar fight, which is like these dumb questions that you just asked, Blaine.
Come on.
I'm going to appreciate greatness. When I see great, it's like me, Peyton Manning or Tom Brady in the last 20 years. It's like, can we not appreciate the greatness and then just kind of like accept it? Or do we need to pick one? And then I say to myself, okay, if you put a gun to my head, of course it's 83. But anyway, I'm not going to.
Vi, here's a question that I want to ask you about Steve. So Steve was a football, baseball, and basketball star on the East Coast in high school. Danny Ainge was a star in the same sports on the West Coast. In a cage fight to settle who was the better athlete, who wins?
Ainge, wow, he was so good, man.
Age has the height
He
and the
was
reach.
good. Yeah, he was good in other. Vi, don't answer that because I'm sitting here, because I think you'd probably say Danny, but I will tell you, Vi, I don't know if you remember, but I convinced Floyd Johnson, who was the equipment manager, because you could not that '80 basketball team with Fred Roberts and Runya and
Trumbo and
Trumbo.
yeah.
Kite.
Oh, what a team!
You couldn't get in. You couldn't get in. And so I told Floyd, if I cleaned up the towels in the visitors' locker room, can I sit? I sat on the visiting bench at the end of the bench, handing out towels my freshman year, so I could get a seat to see the great Danny Ainge play.
Wow!
Because he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable.
Vi, did you want to answer that, or are you just going to stay quiet?
No, you know what? I think the fact that I would only lean to Danny because he played professional sports in two sports.
That's right.
And
Well, I would say this: he's a much better basketball player. I'm a better football player than him.
He didn't
it
throw
comes down to baseball.
You threw
and
a
he actually
no-hitter.
Played pro baseball for a little while, didn't he?
Yeah, but I don't think he threw a no-hitter.
Yeah, you
in
threw
high
a
school.
no-hitter in high school, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve threw a no-hitter in high
Yes,
school.
he did. Yes, he did.
New Canaan High School's never been the same since they
Never been the
faced
same. They never
Steve
recovered.
Young. Did you just have what pitches did you throw? Did you have magic that day when you threw a no-hitter?
I had the high heater, the inside heater, and the outside heater.
I love it.
Steve is a lefty. Hey, I don't know if you guys. I'll tell you the real quick story. That I had a role in Steve going to San Francisco. I may have shared this with Blaine.
Yes, you told me, but I want you to tell this. Yeah.
And Steve will remember the story as it rolls out. Steve is, he's in Tampa, and my rookie year. We're playing. I think it may have been Steve's second year there after he left the USFL. But we're playing the last game of the season in St. Louis, and both teams are like 3-12 going into that last game. You remember this, Steve?
Yeah, you set an NFL record that day. I watched you because we were both whoever lost
was going to get the first pick.
Choice. And
Exactly.
so our team wouldn't. You returned like 4 punts for touchdowns. Nobody would tackle because they had to lose. And I set an NFL record that day. You're right. I forgot about that. Amazing that day.
I returned 2 punts for touchdowns in the second quarter, and we win 21-17. And Steve had, all Steve had was James Wilder, maybe probably one of the top 3 backs in the NFL.
Yes.
There was no one else. There was no one else on that team. So because we won, people in the organization were so mad that we won that game because they wanted the first pick. Because
they won it off of your kicks. I know where you're going. If you hadn't returned those kicks, we would have won, and then you would have the first pick, and I would have not gotten out of Tampa because they wouldn't have taken Vinny Testaverde because Ray Perkins hated lefties and hated southpaws, and I wouldn't have gotten to San Francisco. I do owe you my life. I owe you my life. I forgot about that. I do owe you everything. Oh, my gosh.
Steve and I have
my life. I forgot about that.
When Steve writes his next book, he'll include
Yes.
Vice-Hammer doesn't return 2 punts for touchdowns. And Steve, here's what happened to me. It was the last game of the season, and the next day was a Monday. We voted on the Pro Bowl. Because of those 2 punt returns, I get to go to the Pro Bowl. And my agent had negotiated, they call them escalator clauses. And if you reach certain things, that they would tear up your contract. And one of them that he put in was if I go to the Pro Bowl as a rookie, they tear up my contract and would pay me whoever
Escalator.
was making the most.
So we made you rich, and you made
And
You guys are best friends.
Think of how much did it for me.
all the way back.
I'm glad we were able in 2023.
But Vi told me this story before. I didn't realize that Steve didn't even know this story, Vi. I can't even believe Steve didn't know
I'd
it.
known it deep down
He
before.
was there,
but
but he knows the
put it all
story.
together because we had to lose to get that pick, and that we lost. and he made it happen. And I think the Cardinals were trying to lose too. Nobody, it was amazing. The line of scrimmage was like no one really moved, and then they kind of like fell down because
Nobody's covering punts.
Nobody had to. And Vi was the one's like, hey, you know what? Too bad. I'm going for the Pro Bowl.
Nobody was trying. Nobody was trying. But I'm the 53rd man on the roster. On the 53-man roster. I'm trying to get a job the next year. So I'm the only one going 110%.
That is awesome.
Hey,
Pure
listen,
gold.
our live stream's hopping tonight. Richard just joined us from Panama. We've got folks from all around the world.
We've got Japan in the house,
Soaking this
Panama
thing
in the
up.
house, Australia in the house tonight. It's so cool that this is all over the world tonight.
So Steve, we're gonna let you go here. We want to hit you with 5 quick questions. We ask all our guests. We put Robbie through it. We put Marie through it. We're gonna put Vi through it here in just a little bit.
He has the benefit of listening to your 5 questions, and you're not supposed to think about these. You just first thing that comes to your head. And so here we go. Your favorite sports movie?
Oh my gosh, favorite sports movie. Roy Hobbs.
The Natural?
The Natural.
With Robert Redford, yeah. Favorite singer or band? Vice plugging his ears.
Yeah.
Oh, Vice singer or band. That changes through the years, of course.
Who's today?
Today.
I have to remind Steve that I don't remember what year it was, but he and I and Herm and Lee and Brenda and some girls.
Oh, yeah, Earth, Wind, and Fire back in the day.
Yeah, we went to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and we also went to the Janet Jackson concert together.
Yeah, so we were like, there's some great stuff. But today's probably Young the Giant, or I tell you what, there's some country music. I was never a really country fan, but I've become a real appreciator of some of the great,
Keith Urban. Or old school?
New.
Dan and Shay.
Newer. Come on.
Alan Jackson, Garth Brooks.
That's old. Vi, that's old.
Stay out of this, Vi. That's
Well,
old.
anyway, Young the Giant.
I have to say, 2 of my favorite
Young the
singers
Giant.
that Steve will agree with. These are 2 of our favorite singers. Libby Fowler Lloyd, and
right.
Braden Young are 2 of our favorite singers, right? They definitely are, right, Steve? Steve's son Braden he just graduated from art school, right, Steve?
Yeah, so he's down in Utah. He's down at the Utah Shakespeare Festival this summer.
That's right.
Month, so
Awesome.
We need to get down. Braden and I need to get down and see
play.
him.
We're going to see him. We're going to see him on Thursday. So
Awesome.
great.
Yeah. So Braden, Manhattan School of Music, Manhattan School of Arts, just graduated. So phenomenal. Okay. Favorite breakfast cereal?
I don't eat cereal anymore. So it used to be Captain Crunch, but
Dave's going to be so happy because that's his favorite.
made my mouth bleed. So I encourage people
Listen,
not to
you got to let
anymore.
that sit in the milk for a few minutes, and then they won't bring blood out.
Yeah,
It's just
cereal is like cereal's out for me.
So I have to tell you. So we
Cereal's
asked
out.
Danny Ainge this when he's on. Danny's like, shredded wheat. We're like, surely like frosted shredded wheat. He goes, no, like just the plain old ones, like the little hay bales.
he said it with a pause too.
And
He
we're
just
like,
said
what?
shredded wheat, and there was like dead air, and
And
we're
then we
like,
found out that his wife makes him eat it since he's had heart problems. So that's not his favorite.
all right, number 4, Steve. Favorite stadium to play in?
If I could play today, it'd be on SoFi. That's an amazing stadium in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But I loved playing anywhere in San Diego or LA back in the day because the turf was amazing and the weather was always great. So those are my favorite stadiums.
All right.
And then the last one, favorite Lavelle Edwards memory.
We're at the Hula Bowl. He's the coach of this All-Star game of the Hula Bowl. And so all these All-Stars from all over the country are playing. That's Reggie White was there. There's some phenomenal players that were there, and he was the head coach. And he started the offensive meeting, and he's like, okay, guys, we're going to run, a few plays here. And he starts to get up to kind of draw them up. Classic Lavelle. He's like, Steve, you draw them up. I don't remember them all. Because Lavelle was an organizer, right? He was an inspiration. He was he not the details weren't the thing that he was really focused on. And so he got up in the Hula Bowl to try to talk through everybody. He's like, 66, Steve, right, draw this up.
That's awesome.
Great Lavelle Edwards. All right.
66 inside out away from Mike, right? That's the read.
Yeah, right?
That's the read. Inside out away from Mike. That's what we were supposed to do.
Steve, do you have any birthday wishes for Vi before you go?
Oh, Vi, happy birthday, man. That's amazing.
We've known each other since we were teenage kids, man. So we've been buddies for 40 plus years. So I'm proud of you, Steve.
I feel like I track him every time I see someone. Like, I just saw by. He's everywhere.
He is everywhere.
Wow.
So Steve, ever since he went on his mission to North Platte, Nebraska.
No, Hey, he dragged me back one summer, Steve, to do football camps all over North Dakota.
Oh, that was Floyd Johnson that was sending us out there.
Yeah. Well, you know what we did? To kill time, we sat on the front porch and watched the dog run away for like 9 hours because we could see it for 9 hours because we couldn't see anything else.
I'll tell you, my freshman year, there was not a meeting house in the state of Utah. You can't name a town that was smaller than we went down to speak at from Floyd Johnson assigned
yes.
to the fireside.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Edna, you just tell me some stuff. You're going to go to the Ward House and like outside of Tooele. What was that little town?
Like, but all that Floyd had us do, you guys, over those years, that's what shaped us. That's for sure, right? The great Floyd Johnson.
Much love to all you guys. This
Steve,
is amazing.
We kept you wait longer than we said. I apologize for that, but I don't really because I loved having you on. We appreciate you. We love you, man.
Give Barb our best and see you soon.
Give Barb a big hug and you guys be safe coming over.
Now the truth of who saved my career.
There you go.
That's it.
From the position I now hold, I thank you, Steve, for all the good you've done to advance the work of the church. You are, and by the way, I was happy you came on until these guys broke the news that this is the day that Brigham Young died. It's my birthday, and I didn't know it was the day that Brigham Young died.
Thanks for that.
Kind of a downer.
Listen, when we have one of the great Youngs on the show, the anniversary of that, it has to come out. That Young on the back of those jerseys has meant so much.
Emma's birthday. That's all I know.
We'll just remember it as that. So thanks, Steve.
See you guys. Take care.
Great Steve Young on the Wise Guys tonight.